And I can remember in that memory you brought up, being in the middle of that courtyard. I'd just been given my 2p to go and spend in the shop because you could buy lots of sweeties for that or other little things. They used to sell gifts and things like that. There was a whole series of dolls that came out in the 70s that were the wives of Henry VIII and that kind of thing. Little mini little pippers or something, and they were really sweet. So we used to collect those,
Oh,
and you'd save up your pocket money for that. So I was given the money with the "don't let it burn a hole in your pocket."
yeah.
Now,
Oh,
well, exactly, and that's it. And you think, as an old adult looking back, yeah, I remember that being said. I remember that
yeah,
being said loads, and I can cognitize what that meant
yeah,
and what that did and what have you. But the reality of what it actually did to that
yeah,
little 3-year-old mind, it was like,
yeah.
oh my God, of course. So there I was in that memory, 2p. I can't put that 2p in my pocket because it's
Oh,
going to burn a hole. In fact, having money in my hand,
oh God.
dangerous because
Oh
it's
God.
going to burn me.
Hello and welcome to the True Wealth podcast, where we ask the question, what does it mean to be truly wealthy in this digital age of distraction and disconnection? I'm your host, Betty Cotton Birtles, blues singer, Buddhist, mum of two, and former global shoestring adventurer turned hypnotherapist and mindset coach. I believe that by healing our past and changing our beliefs, we may achieve not only the external successes, the house, the relationship, the money, the impact, but also internal success, the ability to actually enjoy our lives, because it's the joy and happiness that makes it all worthwhile. Join me as I invite friends, colleagues, and esteemed teachers to discuss means of enhancing enjoyment in our lives, following our inspiration as individuals to create whatever it is that lights us up, so that we might radiate that energy out into the world via our businesses or our day-to-day lives, with the intention that all beings may benefit. I believe that this is where true wealth lies. Welcome to the show. Hi, everybody, and welcome back. Today's guest is it was another very enjoyable conversation. I, yeah, I'm so fortunate to have such wonderful people on my podcast, and I hope that you're enjoying them all too. Today's guest is no exception. Louisa Shorney is an artist, a writer, and a healer. Um, and as well as being a member of the gTer Buddhist lineage, so she's a student in the same Buddhist group that I'm a part of too. And we're also bandmates. So Louisa and I both sing in the Savage Cabbage Blues Band, which is absolutely brilliant fun. That's how I've got to know her, actually, through that. And then she also joined my 6-month group program, Ignite Your Power. So this conversation there are two parts to it, really. It's really me asking out of so much curiosity about her and her life, her work in her life and her shamanic practices and healing, and just, I found it absolutely fascinating. So hopefully you'll enjoy that too. And also then we spoke about her experience in Ignite and what that has been like for her too. Like you just heard there in the introduction, she spoke about some childhood experiences and how they, how those ideas had kind of gone in. So yeah, it was really fun actually to have another healer on the podcast and for us to talk, compare notes really about different healing modalities and the way that the healing works, and healers' place in society, looking back in time, and so much other stuff besides. I won't go into details now. I'll just let you listen to this wonderful conversation, and hopefully you'll enjoy it as much as I did. And without further ado, this is Louisa Shorney. Well, hello, Louisa, and welcome.
Hello, Betty.
It's lovely to have you here. I'd love to ask you, we'll just jump straight in, because I want to know. I mean, I'm looking, if you're watching this video, you can see various things behind Louisa. And if you're listening to the audio, she will maybe explain a little bit about what's in the room with her, because she told me some very interesting things before I hit record. And I'm going to get her to explain all sorts of things about these very interesting objects and the kind of work that she does. So, Louisa, tell us what it is that you do.
Okay, so I suppose first off, in a very general form, working with what I call spirit energy. I don't know how you would define that. Different people define that in different ways, but I think the general term at the moment is comes under animism. I think that's a modern terminology, but it basically means that there's an idea that everything has spirit, so it has a potency in it, if you like, a living essence. We don't necessarily think in forms of sentience, but it's a living essence. So it has, if I give a description of a tree, has its own spirit, but the collection of trees within which it dwells also has a spirit. So you can have the spirit of the wood or the forest, but also the individual tree. You could also have a spirit of that species of tree. So there's lots of different ways of communicating with this sort of collective energy, if you like. It's really difficult to describe that kind of concept. So when I work, I am inviting all of these various energies in their various forms to come and work with me and through me. So we could think in terms of mediumship, you're actually talking to people who have been before. So you're thinking of spirit in terms of past people. That's not really what I do. What I do is connect in with the energies that are around me and work with me. So that could be utilizing this room, this space in which this room dwells. That's the literal land it's on, the bigger environment. And then all my tools and all my different things have their own energies. So I've got my little altars. Each altar has its own potency. Each object in it has its own potency. I wear my little medicine bag that's full of all sorts of little things. So yeah, it's difficult to, in a nutshell, but so I talk in terms of ancestors. So they are there. These can be my ancestors or those on the bigger realm of things. So behind me, those on the video can see when my little finger is pointing. I have a shaman's headdress, which for me, that's like, we could call it armor. I don't know that I call it armor. It's more ceremonial wear. And it's a way of connecting in and really connecting with the energy of the ancestors. So for me, that little costume is all about ancestral connection. And that could be going way, 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 way back beyond our written or spoken histories. It's whatever comes forward.
Wow. Gosh.
So each drum, they are also there behind me. They also have their own spirit, their own character, their own energy. So they're not objects. Nothing is an inanimate object. I think that's why they call it animism.
Wow.
It's a way of developing a level of respect with everything around you, because you're not treating it as lesser just because it doesn't speak or walk or act in the same way as you do.
I'm just drinking in these words. It's so beautiful to hear. I mean, yeah, lovely. It really makes me wonder, have you always thought of the world in this way, or understood or known the world in this way? Or was there a point at which this understanding developed in you? I mean, if I'd love to hear about your path to getting where you are now. I mean, how curious.
It's always easier in hindsight to look back, isn't it, and reflect on maybe how you got here rather than when you were actually there. But I can't say that it came upon me. I would say that it's always been there, because as a child, I remember there would be times when I couldn't deal with what was going on around me, either emotionally or mentally or physically. And I would find my little hidey holes in nature. So there would be hedges or little undergrowth spaces that I would find. I would find a tree to go and sit under, somewhere where I felt safe and held by nature. I was aware of all the bugs around me. I was aware of the birds around me, and I would sing them songs. I would sing them songs of how I felt.
Wow.
And what was going on for me.
Gosh,
and
how old were you, Louisa, at this point?
Probably from the age of 3 up until you're going to school. So I used to have that connection and that communication in that very spirit, nature spirit way, if you like, right from the very beginning. And then I think as you go through school and, our sort of societal and cultural teachings and conditionings, that slowly gets sort of dampened and squished a little. So I think you move away from it. But I always had a sense, I can remember as a kid at school, having a felt sense and a knowing when somebody was in trouble. I know there was a young boy who was in the same year as me. This is right down at very beginning school, who really did not come from a good background at all, and he was not in a good place. I didn't know any of this cognitively at all. I'm little, I'm 5, but I almost I can feel his pain. I know what's going on without knowing, if you see what I mean. So I am trying to connect with him and befriend him. That was something he couldn't cope with. So, but it's that kind of thing. So that's always been there. Over the years, then I've learned to find a language for that. I found techniques for that. There's a certain amount of, as you're growing up, you move away from it because you're trying to conform with what you're taught. But then I think as we hit teenage years, I was then, you're getting fed these different things. You're reading books. Some of them might be fantasy and fiction. Some of them might be the real thing. And I live close to Glastonbury. That's nice and easy. So you go and you can get absorbed into that kind of energy of things. And so then I started to more develop it and understand and learn what it was all about.
in your teenage years or
Yeah,
early
I think,
adolescence?
yeah, I would say probably there were certain books I think I picked up from about the age of 12 or 13 that it's why I love fiction. I sort of write
Mm,
fiction myself, and it's like
mm,
in that format,
mm.
you can give a lot of knowledge and information that you couldn't necessarily put in any other terms.
Oh, how
It,
interesting.
it,
Yeah.
it's more absorbable if people
Yeah.
can think it's not quite real.
Yeah. Oh, how interesting. Yeah, that's true, isn't it?
So I am actually writing a book. I'm going to drop that one in there.
Oh, yeah.
I'm writing a
Great.
little fantasy fiction called The Sacred Forest, which is on my
Oh,
website. You can hear it, you
oh,
can read it.
you're writing it and it's there already.
Yeah, because I just thought it needs to be out there.
Oh, wow.
And who knows
So it's not
whether
finished.
it's not finished. We've got about
Mm,
20 chapters. I know
gosh.
how it ends. I don't know how long it'll take to get there.
Yeah. Oh, how lovely.
And it does that kind of thing. It teaches all of this stuff that I do and the
Mm,
understanding that I have, but in the form of story.
mm.
So
Oh,
I think as a teenager, that's how I started. There's lots of people out there like me
mm,
who've got knowledge to give, understanding, share,
mm.
a way to express things, and pick it up that way. Yeah. Then I got a couple of elder sisters, so we used to go off do all the sacred sites. That was my general birthday trip as a
Mm,
probably 15 upwards.
mm-hmm.
So we go to places like Avebury, Stonehenge,
Yeah,
Kennet Longbarrow, Silbury
yeah.
Hill, Uffington Whitehorse.
So
Go down
was
to Cornwall. Yep, sorry.
was this were your parents kind of in favor of these spiritual sites? Is this something that came from, was that interest there with them?
Not overtly, I
No.
don't think. No, I discovered some things about my parents along the way. It's like they've dabbled in this and that. I mean, my mum was always someone who was what I call very kinetic. So
Mm.
there are some people who I had a friend actually who, if she was emotionally wound up, anything electric around her would tend to go ping.
Wow. Yeah. Uh-huh.
And my mum can be a bit zappy like that.
Uh-huh.
And my dad is very intuitive to the
Uh-huh.
point, almost psychic, I would
Wow.
say at times. But they're
Mm.
not things they ever discussed, or you kept a lid on all of that kind of thing.
So interesting, isn't it?
But my
So,
nan used to read tea leaves.
did you?
Yeah, and I
I
think
love that.
if you go back through our sort of family trees, there's usually a
Yeah.
herbalist, a hedge witch, I suppose,
Yeah.
or a midwife, or somebody who is within the community that is turned to by the community, but isn't necessarily trained in the more I don't know, standard way. Put it that way.
Can you explain what you mean by that?
So I say classic, but then I suppose it depends how far back you go, but not in
Yeah.
the healthcare system kind of
Oh,
way
I
trained,
see.
but
So
more in the
what we would call
natural,
alternative or natural health. Silly,
as
isn't
we
it?
would
That
now. Yeah,
it's
yeah.
alternative.
They would have been called hedge witches, or I
Yeah.
suppose in other communities they are medicine women, I suppose.
Medicine women.
But
Yeah.
without the lineage training, because you just don't, in our culture, you don't have that necessarily that continuity. I mean, maybe in some very rural
Mm.
areas, you did back along, but then possibly post the Second World War, you're losing that a lot. And I think
Mm.
we started to lose it a lot during the 1830s and the Industrial Revolution, when everybody's coming out of the rural country areas and
Yeah.
completely changing their way of being.
Mm.
And then a lot of stuff is kept under the sort of radar somewhat.
Mm. Yeah, all these kind of magical practices, basically. Is that
Yeah,
what
I
we're
think that
talking
would be
about?
the
Yeah.
word. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I think that
So
would be
I feel
it.
like we're
Yeah.
skirting around something a little
It
bit
was
here.
good. I think because I think that's I was thinking about that yesterday as I was sort of thinking about this conversation. Thinking, I've spent many years skirting around it because you just feel
Yeah,
it's not safe to talk about these things.
right.
I know that now it is,
Yeah,
but certainly wasn't in my childhood.
yeah. And
And then if
also,
I think about my parents' childhood, it most definitely wasn't in their childhood. You don't, there are certain things that you just keep under wraps or you
isn't that,
pretend don't exist.
and that's amazing, isn't it? That we're now in a time where it is safe and in a country and in a place where it is safe to say these things. And it's very interesting that we're talking about magical practices because this has kind of come to the forefront for me recently when I've just been, yeah, just a couple of things have happened that have made me really think about what is known as witchcraft in this country and the history of that. And yeah, and I just recently got a book about Welsh witchcraft, which I was reading about, and it's really interesting how yeah, just kind of reading through that and apparently there wasn't, I mean, what's one of the things that is coming to mind now is that in Welsh there wasn't a word for witch. So because of that, when all the English were killing all the witches, it wasn't happening in Wales apparently, which is interesting because they just didn't have a word, and these people were more kind of integrated in the communities still. So yeah, I don't know.
Well,
Really,
exactly. And I think I don't even know where the word witch comes from because it doesn't mean anything to
yes,
me. And I
yeah,
mean, I would not class myself as a witch,
yeah,
and I don't entirely know what that means.
no,
It, and that's certainly not the way I work. I don't
yeah,
work with spells and
yeah,
things like that.
yeah,
Yes, and I don't actually even work with essences or herbs or things. And there are plenty of people that do. I
yes,
don't. I work with energy.
yeah. Okay, tell us
I
more.
so I it's that like I was describing about the little boy when I was little.
Yeah.
There is I can feel it.
Mm.
So sometimes if I'm actually giving healing, as in hands-on healing, hands-off healing, whatever we call it, see, I can't help it.
Mm.
Here come the hands. Um, if there is a physical ailment, if there's physical issues going on in somebody, I can physically feel it in my own body.
Yeah. Wow. All the time with anybody?
Well, no, that's the art of learning to train
Ah,
in it and turn it on and off. I would say
okay.
probably as a child, then as soon as you come close in contact with someone, or
Yeah.
I would call it resonance. If there's something
Mm.
with that person that you reflect and mirror, then you're going to feel it more strongly. So if
Yeah.
there's been things that have happened to you in your life,
Right. You recognize it
those
somehow.
things, yeah, are
Yeah.
gonna ring an alarm bell even stronger.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, yeah.
there are some things I don't want to go into too much detail about, but this would be why with this young boy, I
Yeah.
would have really felt his stuff
Okay.
because they were very close to my stuff.
Mm.
But you sort of, so there's a certain amount of physically feeling it, but also
Mm.
if it's an emotional thing,
Mm.
I will pick that up if you like. So
Mm.
when it comes to the more maybe cognitive or mental or emotional things, then I'm getting what I'd call an intuit. So there's like a knowing,
Mm.
and it comes down to the years of practice of knowing what these how my language. If you think we sort of talk to ourselves, I'm happy to use the word talk, communicate with ourselves
Yeah.
in our own symbolic language, a bit like you
Yeah.
dream your own symbolic language. So you get to learn what that is.
Mm.
That's how things drop in. If you think if that makes any sense. So it's not like reading somebody's mind. It's not like
Mm-hmm.
getting a clear image or words or voices in my head. It's more an understanding.
Mm-hmm.
It's like this knowing is the only
Yeah. Okay.
I can give it. It's like, I'm practiced enough now
Yeah.
that when I get that, I can be fairly spot on.
Wow.
And even at working as the years where I was working as a hypnotherapist, which I sort of bleed all of that into it. When I'm taking someone in on maybe a diagnostic journey, say you're doing some parts work or something like that, I am actually there with them. So while they don't have to be speaking with me, but I'm almost seeing what they're seeing, I'm feeling what they're feeling. So if they're a bit stuck, I can know they're stuck, and I just get, well, in the way that you work, when there's something there
Yeah.
and they haven't reached it yet. And
Yeah.
so you just know how you can just keep them going
Yeah.
until they get there.
Gosh, isn't it
And
interesting?
they may get there. They may think they've got there, but they haven't.
They haven't.
You actually know where they need to be going because you can sort of feel it.
You can feel it. Yeah. There's something there. And I'm with you 100% on it's almost impossible to describe what's going on. I mean, well, you're doing a very good job, actually. Better than I've done. But just a sense of knowing.
Yeah. Sometimes it can be really, really, really clear, Betty. I mean, really yeah, I know you haven't, and I know you don't know this has happened to you, but I know this has happened.
Oh, wow. In terms of past events.
There's something, and it's like almost like, and sometimes I'll get a feel of who it is, or what thread that is.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, I can't lead you.
Yeah, no.
But I'll, somehow we've got to get you there for this sort of piece of healing to happen. And there's quite a lot of crossovers, I would say, as well. There's one of the groups I'm on in Facebook. It's a shamanic group. I can't speak the name of it because it's in Swedish, and I haven't. But the guy on there, Eugene, he's we tend to mirror each other quite a lot, actually. And he does a monthly, connects in with the new moon energy and asks his guides, his spirit guides, what have you, what to work on. At the moment, he's working on soul retrieval. So soul retrieval is something I sort of do in my healing work. I don't tend to go, right, we're going to have a soul retrieval session. Sometimes it just happens that way. But I would say, the 20 years that I was working just as a hypnotherapist, that was most of the work that I was doing. Only we call it parts work. It's very, very similar. There's there's subtle differences, but it's very, very similar, where you are finding those parts that are no longer fully integrated. And the healing is either by releasing that wound, or allowing it to change so that it can come back home. And soul retrieval is very subtly different, but they're so alike. And it was the mainstay of what I was doing, I would say.
So how would a person know if they needed their soul to be retrieved? Or how would, why would somebody come to, I mean, well, first of all, what is this something that you're doing now? Sorry, Louisa, this soul retrieval, is that part of the work you're doing? Does it tend to happen?
It does tend to happen.
Yeah.
I don't tend to, in the way I structure what I offer, it's not a come and have a soul retrieval, or come and have this, or come and have a that.
Yeah.
It is more, if you feel that you resonate with what I'm doing, or I feel like the right person, then I will work with you.
Yeah.
So it's whatever you present, and whatever that presentation leads to, if you see what I mean. And at the end of the day, somebody may come in they think it's this issue, but they have no idea that that's tied to this, and this.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And what you're working on is the entire knot, not the thread they've picked and
Yes.
tugged on and can't loosen.
Yes.
And it may appear to be that the root of that knot is a completely unrelated thing. But when you get to the little nugget of it,
Yeah.
the whole lot falls apart. And it's,
Yeah.
oh, all of these things that I didn't realize were attached to this one piece. So I don't label it
Yeah.
as I offer soul retrieval,
No.
have a soul retrieve. And I find the thing over the years, I have done that, and it's, we've done, let's have a past life regression, let's do
Yeah.
this, and I find that just puts a halter. That was the word that popped in my head. Don't know why I put that one on, but it puts a halter on the actual healing process, because it's like people will only go that far. It's like, well, I just want this one thing.
Okay.
And it's like, well, it's more about who do you want to be. If you feel that you aren't actually being you, whatever that is, and you don't even know what that is, if things just don't feel right, if you're noticing this constant loop of behavior or feelings or thoughts or stuff that you just can't seem to work past, or you just feel stuck, or I mean, I'd even go as far as saying, well, there can be certain physical conditions that we are feeling that are symptomatic of something deeper within our own self that needs to adjust. That can be constant headaches. It could be, I think sometimes we spiral into more and more severe conditions, the more we remain stuck. And
like that, the more unwilling we are to look at the root.
Yeah. The more physical, actually,
it gets louder. Yeah,
it does, and it becomes more physical, and it can it can get to a point where ultimately it kills you. I mean, and in my shamanic work, I work with what we call the medicine wheel, and I will be doing a workshop teaching on that at the end of October with a friend of mine, Dawn Oakley Smith. So I'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. But the basic premise of the medicine wheel is it's like a former for life, if you like, or any situation. So you can apply it to a job, you can apply it to a business, you can apply it to a relationship, a house, or even your being from when you were conceived through to when you will ultimately drop this mortal coil, if you like. You can track that that life journey on the wheel. And in the teachings, you come in the East with the rising sun, if you like, and you go through your younger life. To begin with, you've got all your DNA, the trappings of the ancestors, coming with the DNA, the cultural teachings of your civilization. As you go to school, you're moving through to the South, you're becoming a young adolescent, you're beginning to formulate the way that one should act and be and behave and walk forward. You're also very emotional, so it's that phase of life. And then you set your goals as you're coming into your 20s and 30s, and you go out there into life and you set your patterns in your business. And then you come into the West as the sun is setting. This is middle age, and by nature, what we should do when we hit the West is reflect and look back, reevaluate, look at the path that we walked so far. Are our goals actually in line with the energy on the opposite of the wheel? This is big teaching, so I can't go into too. The energy on the opposite of the wheel is our actual essential essence. So if the goals we have set are not in line with who we truly are, then it causes us conflict, friction. It can cause us illness. It doesn't cause happiness. So it's an opportunity in the West to look back and am I doing the things that really resonate with my being? Are there things in my childhood that I can change, I can look at, I can reset? Were the teachings of my ancestors actually in line with cosmic law and order, which sits on the opposite side of the wheel from the ancestors?
Wow.
It's huge the way this wheel works. But the point I'm getting to is that when we are in that middle age part of life, when we're halfway round the wheel, there is an opportunity to make these changes. If things aren't in line, if things aren't resonating, if things aren't working, if there's been damage, wounding, trauma, hurt, harm done on this part of the journey to get to here, this is the opportunity to heal. We have an opportunity to stop, to take a breath, to look back, to reflect. We call it looking through the great smoking mirror, and the great smoking mirror is your delusions and illusions. So these can be where we, all that self-hate, all that down talk, or it could be where we have these beliefs about ourselves that just aren't true. So sometimes the smoking mirror is a lie we've been told. Sometimes the smoking mirror is a lie we're telling ourselves. Sometimes the smoking mirror is a blanket to cover up so that we don't have to see that which terrifies us. And maybe it's not as frightening as actually we think it is. So that's the opportunity to cast all of this off. So that it's seen as the place of healing. If you don't do that, you cannot progress forward. You cannot finish the wheel. And if you stay there, it will just get worse and worse, worse and worse until you either cease or you do something about it.
So it's not a given that a person completes the wheel.
Nope.
You don't have to get all, like, you don't have to complete the wheel in order to die.
No.
Okay. So that's like the ideal, what we're aiming for is to complete the wheel, but we can get stuck on the way.
We can get stuck on the way.
And I love that. I just have to say how much I loved the smoking mirror. I've never heard that expression. My God, I just felt like, felt it in my body when you said that all the bullshit that we've been taking on. Yeah.
So ultimately, as you go round that wheel, the next step is, right, well, it's cosmic law and order. So you're then functioning more in line with the true laws and not the laws of man or not the laws of rigidity.
Hallelujah.
Because actually, you've let go of the illusion and you're now walking in the truth, if you like.
And this is what happens after middle age.
It can do,
any age.
It can happen at any age. And we can apply this to any cycle. I mean, in the work that you do, helping people with their businesses and things, you can apply all of that to a business. You can look, if a business is floundering, sit in the West and look at the components that have gone before and what needs to shift and heal. Is it actually in line with its core energy? If you think about the business itself as a being, the idea of the animism, if everything is if you think of it as its own being, so it has its own seed, its own birth, its own growth, its own education, its own goals, its own healing. It then has to be in line with the ultimate, the natural laws, because everything has to be in line with that. You can't buck emptiness and form, can you? It is what it is. There's no police force for that either, or judge or jury. It just is the truth of the way things are. And the North comes into wisdom and discernment. So really, it's only if you've gone through the wheel can you actually reach that point. The idea being that as you become a certain age, one becomes an elder, a wise person. But if you're stuck in the West, you'll never get wise.
Does this fit with the North? Does that fit with the Buddhist idea of realization, would you say?
I think I would, yes. I would, yeah, and it's that because the final part of the wheel is going back into emptiness again. So the final part of the wheel isn't, you actually die in the north, if you see. So the
Ideally.
last quadrant, ideally, yeah, the last quadrant is would be the bardos, I suppose,
Yeah. Mm.
where if you've reached that kind of non-dual state, then as you go into that final quadrant, this is where your stream of consciousness manages to continue and can come back in whole.
Yeah. Wow.
So yeah, I mean, you could apply
Mm.
the same system, and that's a system that runs through lots of different cultures in their history.
That's
Why?
Oh, sorry. Say that again.
That's why I like to teach it. I don't know why. I think it's a
beautiful.
really important sort of format to follow. I was going to say philosophy, but I don't think it's a philosophy. It's
like a method.
Yeah, it is like a method that can be applied to anything.
And so a lot of people online, particularly in this crazy day and age, are calling themselves shamanic healers. Louisa, talk to me about this, because what is going on, and how can a person who is interested perhaps in these ideas that you're talking about animism, about the idea that all of the what did you call it, the wheel, medicine wheel, so they're listening to this thinking, oh yeah, this is great, oh I know someone who's a shamanic healer. Talk to us about that, please.
Yeah, difficult one, isn't it? It's for trying to find
if
the
you're
right
being
label.
diplomatic.
Well, it's really difficult to find the right label, and it comes down to needing to label things.
Yeah.
And I think the greatest difficulty is here in our culture, because we don't have the continuity of lineage.
Yeah.
Because we had a lot of suppression over. I mean, let's really in our culture, the suppression has been since the Romans came in. It's just been layer upon layer upon layer. Each new conqueror has tried to push down the old way of being. So it's difficult for us to say, we have to keep borrowing terms, and we have to keep borrowing methodologies. So for me, on my path, I'm aware that I have a draw and a pull inside of me. So I would say there's something. Is it in my DNA? I don't know. Is it in my past lives? I don't know. I'm open to thinking in any of those ways. I know I have a pull, a need, a draw to do certain things. Now, I've now got to a point where I trust the work that I do, and this sort of energetic world. I said, I opened up circle. I invite in the ancestors. I invite in the energies of the north, the energies of the element, the energies of the wheel of everything in the room. So I think in those terms now, and I therefore have teachers in that realm that feed me information, that guide me to learn certain things. They actually guided me to our Sangha when I was looking for teachers. So, and I have to trust in that. So there's a certain amount of...
I just interrupt there to just say Louisa's also a member of the gTer Buddhist lineage, that you actually, Nekching Rinpoche, who's our teacher, he was the first guest on the podcast. So if people are interested, sorry, just to butt in, you can go back to square one, if you like, episode 1, and connect with that. Sorry, Louisa, carry on.
No, that's fine. So there is a pull. There's information there, and it's like it's buried. It's buried in time, in space, in cells, in DNA, in the land. It's everywhere, and it gets triggered and uplifted. So there's this common word going around at the moment. We get uploads, we get downloads, and we're having we're having our awakenings and what have you. I don't, I mean, I get it to a degree. I don't get it to another degree. I don't think, I mean, in that terminology, I've never been asleep. So it's a question of gathering the language I've needed to understand what I feel and what happens and how I relate and the connections that I have. So there's a lot of borrowing, basically, to come back to your question. And I've had to do my borrowing. So when it comes to shamanism, I don't know what the roots of that word is. Some people say it's Russian. Some people say this, it's that. It's you're only a shaman if you're Mongolian or Tibetan or Russian up there, or Sami or something. I think everybody's got their own term for it. I think in Peru, they would call themselves shamans. Well, they got their own name, but when they sell it to the West, that's what they're selling it as, because it's looking for a word that people understand.
Yeah.
Like I was talking about the medicine wheel, there is something common in every culture.
Yeah.
So as far as this kind of stuff, there's something common in every culture. And at some point in time, there was a guy, and I don't know his name, who went around collecting all of this commonality. And he took all the common threads and he put it together and he called it core shamanism. So a lot of what's out there is core shamanism. It doesn't belong to a lineage. It doesn't belong to a culture. It doesn't belong to a tradition. And it was done so that we weren't misappropriating inappropriately. Because the thing with all of this is, because it's organic, it relates to your community in time and space as well.
Sorry, because it's organic. Yes.
It relates to your community in time and space, you know, as well as, so now we have more of a global community.
Yeah.
But as far as a lot of the lineage teachings are concerned, they're very much about their culture.
Yeah. That place in the world.
Yeah. So the symbology, if you go back to that symbolic language, which it all has to speak in that symbolic language, you're talking about stuff that's intangible. So it doesn't have a solid language. It can't have a solid language because it isn't solid. You know, I used to have conversations about emptiness and form with my son using different words because we didn't have those words.
Yeah.
Then I come and I find a lineage that is teaching stuff that I sort of know. Yeah. But they've got a few hundred years of language for it.
Yes.
And tradition for it, and methodology for it, and practical stuff for it, which is what really, really helps.
Yeah. I think this is what I was getting at with the question is, I feel like a lot of people are going to Peru, maybe, going to a place, having an experience and coming back saying that they're a shamanic healer. You know, because I know you, I know that, you know, and from what you're saying now, teachers are important, lineage is important, you know, what I think what would be helpful, and I'd love to get your take on this, is for people who are, you know, because I was interested in shamanic healing when I first heard about it. It's not the shamanic world wasn't something I really knew about. I've come to this lineage of Tibetan Buddhism that I've been in for 10 years, but and there are crossovers. There's parallels in some parts of that, but the shamanic world, if you like, isn't something I knew anything about. And so I was quite curious, you know, about connecting with ancestors and things like that. So I went for some shamanic healing locally. I just found someone who had a practice. I didn't know anything about them. And I was, perhaps because of my own experience, I was a little bit, you know, I'm lucky in that I've got access to remarkable human beings, you know, who don't sing and dance about how remarkable they are, but they are remarkable. And so because I've got that, I don't know, my bar is set pretty high. So how can a person know if what they're signing up for is, let's say I want to say the real deal, but like how Well, what's the danger of it not being? Is there a danger in going to some? Maybe it's not a danger, but
No, I think danger is a right word, but I think that's anywhere. I'd say the same about
yeah.
hypnotherapy,
Oh,
actually. In
true.
fact, in my training, there was a guy on the course. He did get thrown off in the end, but he was not appropriate to be sending out there to work on people. There was far too much ego. There was far too much wanting. It was all about him. Then that's not right for a therapist. Go on the stage if that's what you want to do.
Yeah.
But actually, therapy is therapy, and there's a responsibility as a therapist. And I would also say the same about healing. I had a real aversion to Reiki when it first came into this country because there were so many people going out there who were half-cocked and not trained properly. And you can cause healing crisis in people. But you can do the same as a homeopath. You can do the same as a normal doctor. If you misdiagnose and you pick the wrong treatment, you can kill somebody.
Yeah.
It doesn't actually matter what your mode is.
Oof. Yeah.
They're everywhere. Charlatans are everywhere. Wannabes are everywhere. Is there one rule of thumb for finding your way through that minefield? The only one I know of is your intuition.
Yeah.
If it doesn't,
if you don't
the likelihood is it isn't right.
Yeah, that's true.
But then, that's a catch-22, isn't it? Because without learning to try to know what your intuition is, then how are you going to know? So,
sorry.
Trial and error. No, well, as children, that's how we learn, don't we? Learn by our mistakes. So there's a certain amount of once bitten, twice shy.
Yeah.
So I don't think that my advice, I don't think I've got advice that is helpful. Other than come to me.
Yeah, of course, come to you.
I mean, I think I think the very first teachers I had, I only did a 5-day course with them, and they called it a master's class. I mean, there's certain words you're going to hear which really they should ring your alarm bells. Masters. If I hear anyone says they're a master of anything, I'm not interested.
Yeah, that's
not.
That's what I was about to say, which is the people who are the masters are just not talking about being masters. That seems to be a rule.
Yeah, that's it.
That you have to go looking for them usually.
Yeah,
unless you're like me and you were lucky enough to stumble across them when you're walking down the Gloucester Road.
There's probably some other keywords as well. If somebody is teaching you rather than facilitating your change, I would be a little bit more wary.
Yeah.
Where's the onus? Is the onus on the big shot, or is the onus on you and your transformation and what you need? Because I think that's it. A good any guide, any teacher is going to be facilitating your learning.
This is bringing up something for me, Louisa. I'd be interested to hear your take on this, because I've had the experience of like the genuine, oh my goodness, I know this is a person I want to go to, I feel safe with. I've had the experience where I've just known, just my whole body's gone, yes. And I've also had the experience of a kind of wound in me being activated that made it feel like a yes. And then I went full into something and then had the experience of like, I guess we can't, like, there's that knee-jerk response. And this is rife in the coaching world, sadly, that people are actually taught to kind of prey on people's wounds in the way that they're marketing themselves. And which is why I'm doing the work that I'm doing, to help people who are really genuinely, they care and they're good people and they've got something wonderful to offer, to find ways of marketing themselves in a way that's not kind of pulling on those chords that get that reaction. But yeah, I think there's probably another conversation that we could have about that. We could go on for days probably talking about this kind of thing. Yeah. Yeah. So just trusting your intuition and maybe, yeah, I think one thing that I've found is if somebody's pushing or you feel urgency on their side, yeah, you shouldn't really be feeling that, should you?
No, I think, and it's going back to that marketing thing as well. And the thing I've always struggled with is I don't want to be using any of those words to sell what I do. I don't want to sell what I do. I'd rather give it away.
Exactly.
But I want to be doing it.
Yes.
And in order to be able to be doing it and for it to be being my life, I have to sell it because
to talk about it. Yeah.
That's the way our world is structured at the moment. If I went back a few hundred years and I was living in my community, I would simply be being supported by my community and they would be coming to me and we would be part of the community. So there wouldn't be any need to sell it.
Yeah.
If you see what I mean.
Yeah, you'd be knitted into the fabric.
Been. You know, we talk about sacred reciprocity. So it's all about the flow in and the flow out. And if you're giving out, then you should receive back. And it's not, our society just doesn't work like that anymore. It's all gone a bit skew and we've forgotten, we've forgotten what money means. We've forgotten that if we read the note, because we don't even see the notes anymore, that actually says it's a promise to pay the bearer the equivalent of that in gold. It's an energy representation, money.
Yes.
I have given this energy to do this many hours work, and here is a representation of it that I'm giving you for that.
Yeah.
So that you can then give it to somebody else for their time and energy. So really it's an energy exchange.
Yeah. Oh, I love that.
I'm quite happy to work on an energy exchange, but I've still got to keep a roof over my head, feed myself, keep my van on the road, so that I can get around and do the things that I do. So that the dichotomy I'm constantly in is, in order to do this work that I would gladly do because it's a service, I need to be enabled to do that.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, within this culture at the moment, in this time and space, that means money.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean something else, because even if you don't earn money, you've still got to pay to exist one way or another.
And this is the thing about the people who tend to come, or the people who gravitate towards people who are talking about ethical. I mean, I've been involved in this ethical marketing world, and the people who are kind of gravitating towards me and the people I've gravitated towards naturally, they're all people who would gladly do their work without needing money. This is a common thread. It's like they've been sold the idea that they should want the money, and then maybe they try that for a bit and then that just feels wrong, so there's like a shutdown. So this seems like an appropriate point to segue into that journey for you, because you've been involved for the last 6 months now in my group program Ignite Your Power. And so I'd be really interested, Louisa, to hear why you, if however much you're happy to share, about why you joined, and what the experience has been like for you.
I think why I joined was I was just fed up with going around in the same loop all the time. It's like, I keep hitting this wall. It doesn't matter what I do, I don't get any further. And, that sell model that everybody is offering out there, it just does not sit right. And it doesn't matter how hard I try to use it, because it doesn't resonate with me and it doesn't gel with me, and I really don't feel comfortable with it, I can't put the right energy into it. It's not the right thing to do. And it's just, I don't know, I was reached a help. And then you're talking to me about it and I'm looking at it and thinking, okay. And for me, it's actually been really interesting because actually having been a hypnotherapist for 20 odd years, I have rarely found someone that's prepared to work with me, let alone able to work with me.
Oh, I'm glad you didn't tell me that beforehand.
So to work with you has been a really interesting journey, because there's the part of seeing, my stuff's a bit out of date. It's 20 odd years old. So that's been interesting to see how it can be used differently. I think I'd got quite sort of stayed, I think, in my way. I'd certainly lost, I'd lost my passion for it, where I had been absolutely passionate about it, because I think hypnosis is just one of the most marvelous tools out there. It is magical, what it can achieve for people. Although we could go into the science of it, it's absolutely rational, but it's magical in what it does for people. And it's been wonderful to be gifted being on the opposite end of it, because I could do a certain amount of work myself, and I do work on myself, and I have worked on myself for years and years and years. But to be gifted the opportunity of having the work to receive that work and hit on things that I could not have got at on my own, Betty. There's some of the things that have come up for me. It's like, really? Is that what it is? Oh my God.
Is there anything that you're able to or willing to share? I mean, no pressure.
I think the most the one that came up the most for that simple little thing, I think I told you in one of the last sessions, it was that we were looking at the inner child, doing a bit of inner child work again. You bring up the 3 sort of instances, and it was the one where I was about 3 and I was given my 2p pocket money to go and spend in the shop. I lived in we had a holiday home down in Cornwall. So it was a hotel and a whole load of chalets and what have you. So there was the swimming pool complex. There was a swimming pool and a shop for the holiday makers, and a laundrette, and a cafe bar thing. And it's in the old stable block, because it was an old manor house that we lived in. And I can remember, in that memory you brought up, being in the middle of that courtyard. I'd just been given my 2p to go and spend in the shop, because you could buy lots of sweeties for that, or other little things. They used to sell gifts and things like that. There was a whole series of dolls that came out in the 70s that were the wives of Henry VIII and that kind of thing. Little mini little pippers or something, and they were really sweet. So we used to collect those. And you'd save up your pocket money for that. So I was given the money with the "don't let it burn a hole in your pocket."
Yeah. Oh.
Well, exactly. And that's it. And you think, as an old adult looking back, yeah, I remember that being said. I remember that being said loads. And I can cognitize what that meant and what that did and what have you. But the reality of what it actually did to that little 3-year-old mind, it was like, oh my God, of course. So there I was in that memory, 2p. I can't put that 2p in my pocket because it's going to burn a hole. In fact, having money in my hand,
oh God,
dangerous, because it's going to burn me. So this pattern of behavior of, well, money comes in, but fucking it doesn't stay. Excuse me, it doesn't stay. You might want to edit that bit out.
Sorry, I'll put an expletive warning on them.
But it doesn't stay.
Yeah.
So one of these loops for me constantly in my life, I've always worked. I have always put a roof over my head.
Yeah, yeah.
But I've never had enough, ever.
No. Ooh.
And you're thinking, well, why?
Yeah.
So this simple little phrase that just drops out of an adult's mouth without thinking, because we don't mean it like that. But that little 3-year-old mind took that so literally, as they do.
Oh, God.
But I don't think I would have found that myself.
Yeah.
And it's in that context. And I think also, when you're working in that kind of way, when you do it for yourself, you just can't go as deep.
No. I know. I know what you mean. I have the same experience myself. Yeah. And I also feel the same, just to, the thing about finding somebody that can work with me and I can work with a difficult thing. So yeah, I'm happy that we've got to something. And so that has been helpful to get these moments that you might not have got to otherwise, despite your wealth of capacity as a healer yourself. So that's interesting. And what has that meant? I mean, how has it been helpful, and any other aspects of this 6 months together in the group that have been helpful, supportive for you?
Oh, the recordings have been incredible, actually. It's I suppose the way I used to work was I would teach self-hypnosis. So you're actually relying on the person to go away and do it for themselves. And that's another, so from my own, so practically for myself, receiving that and utilizing it, it's like, wow, now that really makes a big difference. And of course you can listen to it every day, and it doesn't rely on my discipline. I just stick it on it and there it is, and I know that it's going to do what it needs to do, and it really does. But then what it's done for me professionally has made me realize how I can pick things up a bit, and how useful certain things are. I mean, times change, don't they? So, I keep thinking, oh, I ought to do this and I ought to do that, but it's like, get on with it. You need to do these sorts of formats are helpful, like doing the podcast. Podcasts are a thing of today that is an incredibly valuable asset.
Oh, amazing.
Not just for you and for me, but for everyone out there who is listening. It's a hugely valuable resource.
Absolutely.
So I think that the recordings are just invaluable, actually, Betty. And the fact that you put that time and energy into bespoking them. So that it was very specific to our needs. And obviously, if you were doing that with an individual, it would be even more specific to their needs.
Yes, it is.
How potent would that be? Because it was potent enough, it being for a group.
Oh, Louisa, I mean, I adore doing these recordings. It's one of my favorite things, and I remember when I was in London with Marissa Peer learning this method and just hearing about this as a kind of the same reaction that you've had of like, oh my God, is this a thing that we can do, that I can do? And then realizing when it kind of dawned on me that, in our Buddhist practice, we've got this, visualization of let's call it a Buddha, for want of a more, a better word, that we're visualizing becoming a Buddha, and we're practicing with the prayer beads, reciting the mantra to become the realized Buddha. And I remember Nakchang Rinpoche speaking about how we're all Buddhas. We could be practicing ourselves. I remember him saying that you could just be reciting a mantra to be yourself, but we don't believe in that Buddha yet. So we practice a different one, and everybody's got this potential. And I remember just hearing, when I heard about this method of the bespoke recording, just thinking, I can see what I'm doing here. I'm speaking, I'm calling in this vision of that person's enlightened version of themselves, and the excitement, I can say this to you, I feel like, oh yeah, we've got a shared language here. The excitement of, wow, that is an amazing opportunity, and I'm not going to get it right, perfect, but to get somebody on the way to that and let go of the things that are actively blocking them from becoming that. Oh, what fun, really, and what a privilege, and all the other words. But yeah, it's and they do work. They're just amazing, these recordings. And some people I know who are working in the world of hypnotherapy don't bother with the recordings anymore. It's interesting, but I really love them. And
Well, so I mean, I know, for the years that I was doing, if people actually took on board their self-hypnosis and did it for themselves, and that was just a much more simple way of just going into that visualization and
Yeah.
repeating an affirmation, if you like.
Yeah.
If you do that 2 or 3 times a day, so well, if you do it once a day, great, you're just going to support the work we do. But if you
Yeah.
do that 2 or 3 times a day, magic happens.
Yeah.
And it really does happen.
Yeah.
So, if you can have the recording and listen to it, takes the effort out of it.
Yeah.
I don't even have to remember what the word is. I don't have to remember the scene or
Yeah. You can even be asleep.
well, that's it. Absolutely. I can just go to sleep and know that it's doing,
Yeah.
it's going in where it needs to go in. And
Yeah.
in fact, probably go in better because I'm not in the way.
Exactly. Yeah.
So no, I would say that the work with you, other than those sort of key specifics, on a general level, what it has done for me is reignites my passion. And so it's great that it's called Ignite, isn't it? Because you absolutely have reignited my passion in that tool, hypnosis, and what I can do with it, and also help me to see how I can blend everything better. Because I was already on this process of I'm fed up with being these separate bits of me, and how do I just bring everything under one umbrella and allow myself to authentically be who I actually am, rather than trying to fit all these different models that people put out there, because I don't fit in them. I never have. So why am I trying? So you've helped me to see how I can blend that. And also, by introducing me to Tad Hargreaves and the work that he does has been phenomenally helpful. So it's not that you're just pushing your own stuff. It's that actually you're looking at what we need. Right here, try this, try this, try this. It's just been great to have that support and to know that I've always got it, actually. It's
yes.
Because, it's the same with me. The work you do, I remember every single client, whether they come back to me or not. I remember every journey. And yes, I'm always here. If they need me, I'm always here. It's great that they don't. If they do,
I just wanted to keep people close. I think I love people so much, and I love the work that I do with people. And I get so sad when it's the end of when there's a group and then energy that come together, and then it's like, oh, it's got to stop now. I don't want.
That's why I like running circles. So I do it. I run monthly circles, and that is.
Are they online, Louisa, or in person?
No, most of them are in person, because again, it's the actual working with the energy of the people in it. I do one online that's a mix. That's psychic development one, which runs on a Wednesday once. It's the new moon, runs with the new moon. But it's that collective and seeing people grow together as well. And when we did the healing work, when I was training as a healer, we'd call it sitting in circle. As the circle develops, they develop together, they feed each other, they teach each other, they train each other. There comes a point where that unit is now a unit. And so you will close that circle and not allow any new energy in. It still keeps going, and then you just start another one. But it doesn't end unless people want to leave. It's this has its own life force, has its own. The circle is a thing in itself, and that is bound by their own rules as well.
It's interesting what you're saying about then you close the circle, because actually my model, my idea, which this everything's subject to change, of course, but how it is at the moment is the only way I can see to keep everybody together is to bring in, just to add, to kind of keep, like, this has been the initial group, and then I'm offering this lifetime access to me and group calls, but that group is going to get bigger as cohorts come through. So I don't know I wonder if you've got any thoughts on that, because I know what you're saying about the energy of a group is very strong.
Yes, but I think different different modes. And if you're a development circle, then the idea is that it's a progression. So they're developing, they're starting at one point, and
Yeah.
they are developing. So there will come a point where those in the beginning have progressed
Yeah.
to a level that if you bring in new beginners, you're always going back to the beginning, and they can't progress. So that's why you close that circle.
Yeah. Okay.
And you then start a beginner's circle. And I think in the way that Ignite is that it's a constant flowing river. So it's not a development as such. So it doesn't have that same kind of need to, you're not necessarily going over old ground. It's tools that are there and available, and it's an ongoing river, if you see what I mean.
Yeah.
That
Beautiful.
makes sense.
Okay, thank you.
I don't think you would need to close it, but you'll know as time goes on how that works, won't you?
Louisa, it's so nice as you've been talking, your little cat is behind you, a black cat, and it's almost like it's perched on your shoulder because it's on the bed behind you. So sweet. One point when you were talking, I actually, I just suddenly saw it. And I got a little bit of a shock.
She is my familiar.
What's her name?
Cherry.
Cherry. Oh yeah, and she's the one that goes camping with you in your van.
She's Kitty in the Van on Instagram. She has her own Instagram.
Okay, great that you're giving links, because that's my next question. Is your work sounds amazing, and if I'm honest, I want to experience it. I really it sounds incredible. I'd be so interested to see how that works. So maybe I'll book a session and then I can tell everybody about how it was. How can people find you? So you've got in-person things.
Yeah.
So where are you? Where's that happening?
I am Somerset, Nailsbourne, near Taunton, Kingston St Mary, at the bottom of the Quantock Hills, rather beautiful. Got a lovely view outside my window. So I work from here. So that's sort of, a lot of the circles are in person here. Some of the workshops I run are in person here. I do some things online, but as far as any actually working sessions, healing sessions, or even rune and tarot readings that I do, they can either be in person or online on Zoom or WhatsApp. Actually, so they don't have to be coming here.
So people who are listening, who might be on the other side of the world, could book in with you for
anything.
Any of it.
Anything that's not a circle or a workshop.
Okay, so the circles and the workshop are in person, and all the other healing can happen online.
They can absolutely happen online.
Yeah. Do you notice a difference between?
I think there's probably different things would come up to do, but the work is the work. I would just have to alter the types of tools I can use. But as far as energy work is concerned, you don't have to be in the room.
Yeah.
I do, for long-term remote work with people, I do make a little medicine doll.
Oh, wow.
So that if I feel that I need to do some more objectual connectivity, then I have a little representation of you.
And speaking of making, I mean, I know we're really coming to the end now, but Louisa is a wonderful craftswoman, and her, you can see some of the projects that she's making. And I know you've just made a drum.
I make drums, yes.
You make drums, plural, but
rattles, drums. I paint. I craft things out of leather. Usually I'm making ceremonial tools, really. But I do take workshops in birthing your own drum, medicine drum.
Beautiful. Yeah.
Tool that I use in my work. Yeah. So again, I can use that online. It may not sound as good.
Yeah.
But it still does the work. And then of course I do recordings like you do. So have a bespoke recording of whatever's needed. It totally, for me, it's totally intuitive. So I don't know what you're going to need until you present me. it could be predominantly sort of more hypnotherapeutic.
Yeah.
It could be that you need more sound and vibration,
Yeah.
or you need hands-on healing, or you
Yeah.
need something more psychic. Who knows? But it's a melding.
And so finally, is there any kind of people with what kinds of issues tend to be the ones that people present with? Or is it, I mean, do you?
I suppose ultimately, as anything, it's presenting with you. If you feel stuck
Yeah.
and you're going round and round in circles and can't shift,
Yeah.
or you just feel in a very dark place
Yeah.
and there's no light, light is what we work with. So yes, I mean, predominantly what I do is removing blocks. In my years of healing and work, it's all dealing with trauma, ultimately, one way or another.
And do you work with children as well, Louisa?
I do not.
Okay.
No, I don't. I think there are plenty of people out there that specialize in working with children, and children are very special little beings. So I decided a long time ago when I was studying psychology, I chose then not to go down the route of child psychology, because I understood that was a whole thing in itself. And you either do that or you do adults.
Yeah.
So all my training is geared to preferably 18 and over, but 16 and over.
Yeah, I feel the same actually.
So even as a teacher, I've done teacher training and various bits, but it's all, I focus on the adult.
Beautiful. I'm afraid we've run out of time, but it's been so wonderful to hear about this kind of world of work, and yeah, huge repertoire and expanse of things that you do. And where can people find you?
Okay, so my website is www.louisa-shorney.com. That's my name. So it's LOUISA dash SHORNEY. And you will see my various incarnations on there. If you click on the healer, you will see what I have on offer. And that's, you can book readings, you can book, it's not so much booking sessions. It's not like booking time and day. It's more asking me, if you see what I mean. There's a registration,
Applying,
billing, basically.
Yeah.
And you can tell me what you're roughly looking for, but ultimately we will look at a bespoke package for you.
Yeah. Beautiful.
But all the information is there. And then if you go to facilitator, there's a drop down menu of dates for the diary, and there you'll find all my workshops and my circles, markets, and everything else.
And that's all in the Southwest?
Mostly, yes. Yes, it is. Some of the workshops end up being other places. The next one will be Stroud in Gloucester, working with the Empowered Herd for a weekend workshop on the medicine wheel.
Oh, sounds really juicy.
Yeah.
Lovely. Oh, thank you so much for being a guest, and thank you also for being a participant in Ignite. It's been so lovely. I've really enjoyed this group that we've had, and having you there has been a real pleasure. So, Louisa Shorney, thanks so much.
And thank you for all your gifts, Betty. It's been wonderful.
Pleasure. Well, wasn't that a whirlwind, a fun ride? I mean, we covered a lot of ground there, Louisa and I. I've just listened back to the conversation and I found it fascinating, even just a week after having recorded it. So hopefully you enjoyed it too. You can find out more about Louisa and how to work with her and experience her healing at www.louisa-shorney, SHORNEY.com. And you can find out all about her work there, and her workshops and events that are coming up. If you click on the facilitator tab, there's a drop-down menu that says dates for the diary, and there you can find out about all of her upcoming circles and teaching and events. And some really interesting things. I'm just having a look through, and really interesting things that are coming up, especially redressing the balance in November. A workshop all about connecting to our core archetypal energies, the sacred feminine and sacred masculine. And how we use these energies within us. Oh, it sounds great. And knowing Louisa as I do, I'm sure that it will be a wonderful experience. Okay, that's Louisa's bit done. If you are interested in hearing more about Ignite Your Power, I would be so excited to have a conversation with you. You're more than welcome to book, find a time for a half an hour chat with me, and we can, check out truewealthwithbetty.com/ignite. You'll get all the details about the program, and then if you're interested, you're more than welcome to book yourself a half-hour chat, and we'll see if it's a fit on both sides. And if I don't think it's a fit, I will say that I'm not interested in having people in the program who aren't going to get the benefit from it. So I will let you know if it's not a fit. But if you're somebody who's got something of value to offer the world and just is getting caught up in procrastination, self-doubt, unworthiness, just like maybe you're trying to make videos or promote your business, and then you're waking in the night and deleting them because there's all these doubts coming in, like, oh, I'm such an idiot, who am I to say that? The kind of imposter syndrome that comes up. Oh, if that's you, or if you've got funny ideas about money like Louisa was talking about, then Ignite Your Power is quite likely to be something that would help you. So check out truewealthwithbetty.com/ignite. Read through that page, and if that resonates with you, please do book yourself a call. We'll be getting going in November 2024, and it's likely to be quite a small group. So if you want to be part of it, let me know. I look forward to hearing from you, and I'll see you next time. Bye for now.